Today's passage is from the book of Hosea, chapter 2, verse 19 through chapter 3, verse 5. Hosea 2:19 through 3:5. I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you in righteousness and justice, in love and compassion. I will betroth you in faithfulness, and you will acknowledge the Lord. In that day I will respond, declares the Lord. I will respond to the skies, and they will respond to the earth. And the earth will respond to the grain and the new wine and oil, and they will respond to Jezreel. I will plant her for myself in the land. I will show my love to the one called not my loved one. I will say to the people who are called not my people, that you are my people. And they will say, you are my God. The Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again, though she is loved by another and is an adulteress. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and love sacred raisin cakes. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and for a homer and a lick of barley. And then I told her, you are to live with me many days. You must not be a prostitute or be intimate with any man, and I will live with you. For the Israelites will live many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred stone, without ephod or idol. After the Israelites will turn and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They will come trembling to the Lord and to his blessing in the last days. Everybody likes a good love story, right? I mean, a love story speaks to us. I started to wonder this week, what's the greatest love story ever told? So I did a little research and I found that lots of people have an opinion on this. There are all kinds of lists out there of the greatest love stories ever told, and they include everything from Pride and Prejudice to The Princess Bride. I noticed that near the top of every list seems to be Romeo and Juliet. The greatest love story ever told is about a boy who was in love with a girl, then meets a different girl, falls in love with her, marries her 2 days later, and within a week of meeting each other, they both kill themselves. Signed, Shakespeare. I once heard a preacher say that that's not the greatest love story ever told. He said the second greatest love story ever told is the story of Hosea and Gomer. And he said the reason that is the second greatest love story ever told is that the greatest love story ever is the story it illustrates. The story of Hosea and Gomer is really designed to illustrate the story of God's love for us. Let's start with the story of Hosea and Gomer. Now, we began to look at their story last week, and they had kind of a rocky start. It began with the young, idealistic preacher marrying a prostitute. And you kind of root for this couple. I mean, they were in love, and you want this couple to work out, but we know the odds are stacked against them. They come from two different worlds. They have different ways of looking at life. I mean, this is a couple that you'd love to see work out, but you know there are a lot of ways that this relationship could go wrong. And it did go wrong in one of the worst ways possible. It seems that Gomer returned to her old ways. She had married Hosea, they had built a life together, they had 3 kids together, and then Gomer went back to being a prostitute. She abandoned her family and returned to her old life. Now the movie Pretty Woman is one of the most famous love stories of the modern world. And it's a fun tale. It's the story of a prostitute who spends a weekend with a man, and they fall in love, and they live happily ever after. And it's a fun story. The thing about Pretty Woman is it's a fantasy. Nothing against that. I love a good fantasy, but that movie is a fantasy. Reality is much, much darker. Throughout history, essentially all prostitutes have been slaves. Whether slavery was legal or not, whether prostitution was legal or not, hasn't really mattered. In practice, most all prostitutes have ended up as slaves. And that's what happened to Gomer. We're not told all the details here. We don't know how she first returned to prostitution. I assume there's a pretty good backstory there of why Gomer became a prostitute again. I'm not told that story. And we're not told how she ended up a slave. But we knew the moment she went back to prostitution, that's probably how this story was going to end. Gomer ended up a slave again. And just imagine how Hosea felt. I mean, if I were him, the word furious would not cover it. Gomer didn't just cheat on Hosea, she cheated on him with anybody who had an extra $20 lying around. She didn't just abandon her family, she abandoned her family for a life that was obviously much, much worse. That kind of insult, that slap in the face would be beyond words. And then Gomer ended up as a slave. And there had to be a part of Hosea that was saying, karmic retribution. You reap what you sow. You did horrible things and bad things happened to you. And then God said to Hosea, go show your love for your wife again. And to say the least, Hosea would have to be conflicted about that. On the one side, he had to be furious with Gomer. Even as God told Hosea to show his love to his wife, God reminded Hosea that Gomer was regularly cheating on him. But on the other hand, Hosea still loved Gomer. Despite everything that she did, Hosea loved her. Notice that when God told Hosea to go to Gomer, he didn't say, go love your wife again, or go feel love for your wife again. He said, go show your love for your wife again. The love was always there. I suppose that Hosea wasn't showing that love because he was justifiably angry with Gomer, but he still loved her. And God told Hosea to go and show his love for Gomer. That wasn't a simple thing, though. First, Hosea had to forgive Gomer. She had cheated on him repeatedly, and now to show his love for his wife, Hosea had to forgive her. He had to let go of that hurt so that he could forgive and show love again. Beyond that, he had to redeem Homer. I keep wanting to say Homer. I just want to combine their names into one. Hosea had to redeem Gomer. I want to talk for a moment about the word redeem or redemption. It's not a word we use very much in the world today. I think for a lot of people, redemption has been regulated to a church word. It's a word we use in the religious context and nowhere else. But it does have a more basic meaning than that. To redeem something means to buy it back. Once upon a time at a pawn shop, they used this word. That if I sold something at a pawn shop, I might have 30 days to redeem it, to buy it back before anybody else does. I don't know if that is really a thing anymore. Probably the most common way we use the word redeem nowadays is with a coupon or a gift card. My favorite example in this setting is skee ball. Y'all played skee ball, right? I love skee ball. You pay money to roll a ball down an alley and try and get it into holes, and if you get enough scores, you win tickets and use those tickets to buy prizes that were not worth nearly as much as you paid to play the game to begin with. I know when I describe it like that, it sounds kind of terrible, but really, it's a lot of fun. When I go up, I take those tickets to get my prize. I might say I'm redeeming those tickets. In reality, I'm not redeeming the tickets. The store is. I won the tickets. They belong to me now because of my mad skills at skee ball. When I take those tickets up, the store will buy them back. They will redeem those tickets in exchange for a Tootsie Roll or a plastic ring with a little spider on it or something like that. That is a simple example of redemption, of buying something back. The story of Hosea redeeming Gomer is not so simple. Hosea had to buy Gomer back from slavery. And we're told he paid 15 shekels of silver and a certain amount of barley. Describing the transfer from ancient money to modern money is insanely complicated. I'm not even going to try. The short answer of this is that's about the normal price of that day to buy a slave's freedom. And we are told that Hosea only paid half the money in silver. He paid the other half in barley. This suggests he probably didn't have enough money to purchase Gomer's freedom, that he had to pay with his crop, his livelihood, to buy back his cheating wife. But he was willing to do this. He redeemed Gomer. He bought her freedom, and the two of them did eventually get their happy ending. That, as I said, this is a love story. It starts with that hopeful beginning. It has the tragic betrayal, and then it ends with a love that conquers all. That Hosea was willing to sacrifice greatly to show love for his wife. And the two did get to live happily ever after. But it goes beyond that. Because this story is really the story of God's love for his people. In the most immediate sense, it is the story of God's love for the nation of Israel. God described his love for the Israelites the way he would describe the love between a husband and a wife. This is a close, intimate relationship. God is not a distant concept or an absentee father. He is someone who's close to his people, and he desires for us to know them. But Israel was unfaithful to the Lord. If a relationship with the living God is a marriage, then chasing after foreign gods is adultery. And God accused the people of this adultery. And the people wanted to fit in. They wanted to be like all the nations around them. And so they chased after these other nations' gods. On an individual level, we might change our identity, abandon who we are to fit in with other people. On a national level, the Israelites abandoned their unique relationship with God to fit in with other nations and establish military alliances. God accused them of prostitution. They committed adultery in order to gain wealth and political power. The prophet Isaiah went even farther, saying that they were worse than prostitutes because a prostitute at least receives pay in return for her favors. And Isaiah said the Israelites paid others to come in and take their favors away. But God continued in his unending love. God warned the people of the end result of their prostitution. I said a moment ago that on an individual level, most prostitutes end up as slaves. God warned that this is what was going to happen to Israel on a national level. That they had sold themselves to other gods, and they as a nation would end up as slaves. And this is what happened. Eventually, both Israel and Judah were conquered by other nations. The people were shipped off in exile, and an entire generation spent their lives as slaves in Babylon and Assyria. But God didn't abandon them. He bought them. He brought them back to their homeland. He redeemed them. He once again established the Israelites as a nation with a unique relationship to the living God. And beyond that, beyond the relationship between God and Israel, this is really about our relationship with God. That we have a God who redeems us. One of the challenges of talking about redemption is that we're tempted to dismiss the need for redemption. We're tempted to blow it off and say it's not that big of a deal. We're tempted to say that things aren't really that bad, or if they are that bad, we just don't talk about it. The addict's first response is always to say, I'm not really an addict. I can stop anytime I want. The guy who's been driving around lost for the last 2 hours says, I'm not lost. We'll find our way there. The sinner says, I haven't done anything that bad. It'll be okay. From the silly to the serious, there's a part of us that wants to dismiss our need for redemption. Part of the message of Hosea is that we really are in need. That we have sold ourselves. That we have not sold ourselves to foreign gods, our idols, but we sold ourselves to this world. We didn't mean for it to end up here, but here we are. We sold ourselves to sin. We've sold ourselves to selfishness and self-interest. We've sold ourselves to lust and pornography and addiction. We've sold ourselves to a heartless lack of concern and compassion for our neighbors. We've sold ourselves to sin. And God's response to us is unending love. God's response to us is redemption. And if the story of Hosea and Gomer made any sense, if it were written by a modern Hollywood producer, it would end with Hosea finding somebody new. It would end with Hosea moving on. If this were a modern romantic comedy, then Gomer would be the relationship that Hosea was in at the beginning of the movie, the bad relationship he has to recover from so he can go find somebody new. Gomer would be Rosaline, the woman that Romeo was in love with until he laid eyes on Juliet. If this were a romantic comedy, it would end with Hosea falling in love again and Gomer getting her comeuppance. What makes this a great love story is that's not how it ends. Hosea doesn't give up on Gomer, but he redeems her. And God doesn't give up on us. He redeems us. Maybe in your life you've felt lost. Maybe you've felt in need of redemption. Maybe you've had those times in your life where you felt hopeless, felt confused, felt you were in a pit. Perhaps you felt you had sold yourself too deep. You had fallen too far. You had lost too much. There was no way that God could ever make this right. If you have ever been there in life, if you're there right now, we have a God who redeems us. We have a God who buys us back. We have a God who would sacrifice everything to bring us back. And Jesus Christ, God himself, left his throne in heaven to be born as a man, to suffer the ups and downs of this life, and he did that all so that he could then die for us. He was willing to sacrifice everything, to trade his life for ours so that we might know the redemption of our God. We have a God who buys us back, no matter how far we have fallen, no matter how deep in the pit we are. We have a God who redeems us. We have a God who shows us unending love. The story of Hosea and Gomer is a love story. It's a story of a love that doesn't give up. And it's designed to illustrate an even greater love. A love that never gives up on us. Let's not try to kid ourselves. We are fallen in sin. We have all done what is wrong. We have made mistakes out of ignorance. We have left good things undone, and we have all had times where we knew what was right and what was wrong, and we intentionally did what was wrong. Let's not pretend we are anything other than broken in sin so badly that we cannot ever fix ourselves. But we have a God who redeems. We have a God who loves us beyond words and will not abandon us. And when we feel fallen in sin, when we feel lost, when we feel hopeless, he is there to buy us back. He is there to call us to him and to redeem us. This is the greatest love story ever told. It's not a romantic love story or an erotic love story. It is a story of love that does not end. It is a story of a love that would give up everything to bring us back. No matter how far we have fallen, no matter how hopeless we feel, we have a God who redeems us. In a moment, we're going to stand for our invitation hymn. And as we stand to sing, if you need that redemption, if you feel lost, if you feel your life in a pit and you're looking for a way out, there is a God who desires to redeem, who wants to buy you back. This week, talk to myself, talk to one of the elders, or even right now, if you need to make your own commitment to the Lord, if you need to know his redemption, you have an opportunity. I ask you'll stand with me as we sing our invitation hymn. Stand up for Jesus for 477. And we'll sing all the verses.